Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another special episode of Herschel Talkers. Georgia's got a huge, epic game. Georgia versus Florida in Jacksonville's world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Big Sean and I are headed with our buddy Todd and our other friend Chris. We're heading down. Huge game this week. Got a great returning guest, former Georgia great wide receiver Sean Bailey, as he gives us his thoughts on the upcoming game with Georgia, Florida, and also look back on some of his past experiences as playing in the Jacksonville. Please hit that like button and subscribe on YouTube. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, post on 247. But we need to try to build up those likes and subscribers. And this is another podcast, and enjoy. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, got another return special guest again. Got our old friend Sean Bailey, former UGA great wide receiver. Played in from 2003 to 2007. How we doing today, Sean?
Doing good. Excited for this weekend for sure. Can't wait till Saturday gets here.
Awesome. And we also got Big Sean on the phone. How we doing today?
We're doing good. Actually, you need to introduce Mr. Bailey by saying he played in the celebration in Jacksonville and was undefeated in the black jerseys, I believe.
There you go. Yeah, actually, speaking of that, Sean, I was going to save that, but since he just asked about it. So on the celebration call, where were you exactly when it happened? And we've heard different stories. Did Rick tell everybody to do it, or what was like the whole decision to do that in 2007?
Yeah. I was on the field, so I was right there. One of my favorite pictures that I got blown up is that celebration with me. It was one of the best moments as a Georgia football player that there was. To answer your question, we had a bye week, kind of like this year, most years that we play Florida. And, just historically, for whatever reasons, that week, the coaches would start to get tight and players would start to get tight. And I believe it was early in the week of practice. There was just some usual stuff that starts to happen that week, people jumping off sides, dropping balls and all that stuff. So, Coach Rick, called us up after practice and was like, hey, we just got to be free. We just got to play, not worry about this game. That's a big game. He's like, as a matter of fact, when we score the first touchdown, if you guys don't get a celebration penalty, you're going to be in some trouble come the next week. I think when he said that, he didn't envision the whole team coming onto the field. He thought the guys on the field were going to, do something to draw a flag or whatever. But the emotions were high, and that was a celebration was planned, but that wasn't the plan. It just was something that happened, and it was something that gave us a spark. And like I said, it was probably one of the best memories I had being a Georgia football player.
Yeah, that was awesome. I think that was one of Sean and I's one of the favorite games, especially getting a win finally over Florida, because I know it'd been a while. But
and speaking of Coach Rick, had a major health scare the last couple of weeks. Have you spoken with him? How's he doing?
I haven't spoken with him. I sent him a text, and I imagine he probably got a million texts. But he did post a video, and I'm friends with his son John. And John kind of kept us updated throughout the whole time. And the one good thing about Coach Rick is his faith. He's a man of faith, and he knew everything was in God's hands. So his spirit was free, and I'm glad to hear that he's recovering and getting back to his normal self.
Yeah, that's cool. That's real cool. So it seems like a lot of the issues or concerns of late, I guess with the 2019 version of the Georgia Bulldogs, stems around the offense. And I mean, as somebody who's actually played it at like a legitimate level, do you think some of that's overhyped, or is it hard to tell, or kind of what's your thoughts on it?
I think a lot of questions are going to be answered Saturday. I think this is a crucial game for the offense for Coach Coley. it's one of those things where it's not necessarily overhyped, but it's at that point where the offense needs to step up to the plate, and this is a great test. The weather should be good. There should be no excuses of the torrential rain and all that stuff. So I think this week will go a long week in slowing down and calming down the waters if we can come out and be effective offensively, specifically in the pass game.
See, yeah, Sean, you being wide receiver, it seems like the big thing is the wide receivers not getting separation. A lot of teams are stacking the box and doing press coverage. Is that what you've seen or noticed? And it seems like maybe there's not chemistry between Fromm and the young receivers, because I know he had a lot of veteran receivers last year that left for the draft.
No, that's exactly what it is. They're starting with South Carolina. They're loading the box up to stop Swift, and they're saying, hey, we can press up on the outside, play man to man, and dare them to beat us with the pass, and we haven't connected the way that we should. And a lot of it is, like you said, inexperience. It takes a little bit of time for these younger guys to get used to that press and getting off the jam. And creating that separation you need, and then also, Coach Coley having the confidence in the younger guys to put them in more situations to allow them to grow and develop.
And I think having Lawrence Gager back, I know he practiced this week. I think that's going to be a real benefit having him back, because I see him as one of the one or two or the top receivers there. Lawrence Gager, he's been a good transition.
Yeah, he's a big physical receiver. He's played in some big games at Miami. He's definitely played big for us when we've been able to have him on the field. So he has the experience. He has the size. It's a lot harder for defenses to say, hey, I want to come up and jam this guy and press this guy with his stature and his experience. So I think he'll be a much needed benefit to the offense this weekend.
Yeah, and then I guess I had to put you on the spot of conspiracy theory, because we're always hearing this, and we've been always been complimentary of Bobo. I know at the very end, any would you take Bobo back if Coley doesn't get it done the rest of the year? Or, I know Bobo's kind of struggling at Colorado State. I know you. I believe he's offensive coordinator while you were there. Is that right? I think he was.
Yeah, he was. I'm a huge Bobo fan, a big believer. He was one of the best offensive coordinators that Georgia's ever had. And if you go back and look at the statistics and look at how many 40-point games we had, how explosive our offenses were. It's one of those things when you're in that seat, you're always in the hot seat, and a lot of times you're not appreciated as much until you're gone, and that's unfortunate. I think Bobo is one of those guys. So
I
if
agree.
it ever did work out for him to make his way back home, I would be the number one fan for that.
Okay.
Big believer in Bobo.
There we go. Any questions on that, Sean? I know you like to hear that.
Well, yeah. I think that's probably putting the cart before the horse. I think everybody would love to have him back. I guess as it pertains to the game this weekend, what do you think that Georgia's offense can do with those young receivers to get them in a rhythm against that Florida defense?
Well, for one, we got to get out of this run on first down, run on second down, pass on third. We got to get a little bit more explosive on first and second downs. The one thing you can do, especially with young receivers, which will help with the press, is you can put guys in short motions. Whenever you motion a receiver, the flanker, the guy that's off the line of scrimmage, it causes the DB to get off the line of scrimmage because you can't press a guy that's moving. So just being creative and doing little things to help the receivers out in that nature. And then also, like I said, not being predictable, taking shots on first down, passing on second down, not getting into that stagnant, okay, we're going to run, pass, run, pass. Just mix it up and be a little bit less predictable.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like that.
What do you see as far as Florida's wide receivers? What do you think is going to be the biggest problem you foresee our defense having with them?
They're really talented too. Yeah. They're deep.
Yeah, they're extremely deep. Where Georgia lacks experience at that position, they have a lot of experience. A lot of fourth and fifth year guys that been there and done that. When you look at our quarterbacks, I definitely give Fromm the edge. But when you look at just the playmakers and the experience on the outside, Florida has that. So hopefully it evens out the battle, with our strengths versus their strengths. But I think, putting pressure on that quarterback, this is first year starting. He's only a couple games in, kind of getting him rattled early in the game, and try to expose him. I think we have some good guys. We got Campbell coming back from the outside, and we can press and we can bring pressure just like anyone else can.
Good call.
Yeah, and then the stat that's been kind of going around this week that's pretty interesting is in the last 9 meetings, the winner who has the most rushing yards has won. And as of now, Georgia is actually number 1 rushing offense in the SEC and number 1 rush defense. So I thought that was an interesting stat. But Florida does get 2 of their good. I think Zamiga and the other guy coming back on the defensive line, so they're going to be pretty healthy. But we're going to be pretty healthy as well. I believe we're getting Trayvon Walker back as well, so that'll help out on the defensive line.
Yeah, that's definitely the benefit of having the bye week before here at this time of the season is you get a chance to get healthy, and I'm always, I want their best and I want our best, so there's no excuse at the end of the day. When we win, it's not, well, this guy was out and that guy was out, and all that stuff. So good on good is always a good thing.
And looking on Florida's side, it seems like this Kyle Pitts tight end is going to be a dangerous matchup. What do you think maybe Georgia needs to do? I think he's one of the top tight ends in the nation. And then I think Clement for Notre Dame gave us fits in the Notre Dame game. He had over 100 yards and a touchdown, I believe.
No, you're exactly right. That was one thing I was going to point to is that we had some growing pains in that Notre Dame game. You take that tight end away, and Georgia completely dominates that game, and he, his production allowed Notre Dame to hang around in there. So that's one of the things that hopefully that's a blessing in disguise, and we had an ability to grow and see how we need to change our preparation in facing these top tight ends. And I think Kirby's one of those guys that when he sees something one time, the next time he's not going to allow it to have the same production. So I think us playing Notre Dame and going through that is going to benefit us greatly going into Florida.
And also, do you think Charlton Warren, the defensive back coach, former Florida coach last year, do you think he's going to be able to add any insight or point any things out? It's always good to have, former coach on the team.
Yeah, there's little tidbits here and there that you can point out, but at the end of the day, you got to go out there and you got to play and you got to execute. I think I was reading something earlier about Brendan Cox being at Florida now. How much is he going to be able to give insight on Georgia to those guys? And it's a little bit. I think that is kind of overrated. I think once you get in between the lines, it's football. You got to play and react.
Yeah, good point. Real good point. What's your feeling going into this game?
Yeah, if you can give us a prediction, maybe.
I don't know. I feel real good. I feel like I feel like this game means a lot to us. There's a lot riding on this game. Just nationally, we've kind of let down a little bit. We came in obviously ranked third, and that South Carolina game. And then even after that, just the offensive production. So I think, although we're favored by in a lot of publications, we're kind of back to where I like us to be, or we're doubted. There's a lot of doubts out there.
Right.
Is Georgia for real? And I think that at this time is a lot of times when Georgia will step up and make a statement. And I think this is a great opportunity to make a statement for us nationally.
Yeah, I believe it's Georgia's 6.5 currently. I know the point spreads changed throughout the week. Sean always brings up, and Nick Saban said it. I think he quoted it. Sean's always said, and Nick Saban, of course, it's 18 to 21-year-olds or 22, you can only get them up 2 to 3 times a week or 2 or 3 times a year, just because it's, to have them all focused and everything. Do you believe in that, and do you think this is going to be one of the games? Hopefully, Kirby can get them up, as they say.
100%, without a doubt. That's exactly right. Especially playing in the SEC, the weaker teams in the league are capable of beating the better teams. I think Nick Saban and some of the other top coaches do a good job of not having those letdowns. But you play South Carolina 9 out of 10 times, you're going to win that game. But that game meant so much to South Carolina, probably more than it meant to Georgia, and it's a letdown. When you play Florida, when you play LSU, when you play Auburn, there is not going to be a mental fatigue or a mental letdown going into that game. So at this point, emotions are going to be high coming out. Everybody's going to be focused throughout the time. This is a big time game, so you're going to get the best of both teams.
Yeah, it's what makes it such a special game. It's just, regardless of the score, it's just I think both teams just play with so much passion.
Yeah, there's not too many places, not too many scenes like it in college football where you're half the crowd is red, half the crowd is blue. It's loud on offense and defense for both teams. The setting, the atmosphere. What this game means. Whoever wins this game is clearly in the driver's seat to get to the SEC championship. So this is pretty much, if there's a SEC Eastern championship, this would be the game for that.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I know that's been a big debate recently. What's your thoughts on it, and which way do you sway the way about them extending Georgia, Florida to stay in Jacksonville? And I know Kirby's been kind of pushing to maybe get it home and home just for recruiting purposes. Or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the best scenario for all parties involved would be a four game cycle. You maybe start in Jacksonville. Then the next year play in Atlanta in the Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah.
And then the year after that, play in Gainesville. And then the year after that, you play in Athens. You look at the average collegiate career is 4 years. And if you go 4 years, you'll have an opportunity to play in 4 different venues. You'll have 2, competitive advantages of the games being in the state of Georgia. And then Florida has 2 competitive advantages of the game being in Florida. And then you also get the home and home where you can have the recruits come and all that stuff within that 4 years as well.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
That's a really good idea. Well, and Sean, I don't know if you're prepared to talk about this yet or not. I think kind of it seems like it's come a little bit out of left field. It's not really related to Georgia, Florida, but I was wondering if you'd had any time to really think about college athletes now being able to make financial benefit from for likenesses, and kind of what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I agree with it. I think that any college student that has a talent or a gift is able to monetize that and not jeopardize their schooling. So if I went to school and I was on scholarship because I had a talent of being a pianist or whatever, anybody could hire me to come play and I can make money off of that. I do think that there's going to have to be some kind of structure, some kind of way to keep tabs and make sure that the playing field is level for all. You don't want stuff to get lopsided and all that stuff. But I think them voting on this in that way is the right first steps. And I think they give themselves some time to draw out the parameters and find a way to make it even on all aspects. I think it would be a good thing.
Yeah, I guess that I'd imagine they'd probably have some level of cap on it, right?
Yes, I think there has to be some kind of structure. You're kind of in a gray area, and things have changed. The evolution of all this thing. Way back when college football didn't generate the type of money that it generates right now. Coaches weren't making $6 to $7 million, a year. The money that's in the NFL that these guys are potentially able to get once they're finished wasn't like this. So I think just the dynamics the culture that we're in today has changed, and the NCAA has to change with it. I just think the change has to be smart. Like you said, there has to be some kind of parameter, some kind of structure, something that I believe they can get creative in doing. There's some really, really smart people that I think they can form a system that's beneficial for all parties.
Yeah, agreed. Because I remember, circling back to Georgia, Florida, just, when Gurley got suspended, I think it was like a game or two beforehand. I think basically all he did was make some money off of his own signature. It just seemed something then that was so fundamentally wrong about him not being allowed to do that,
Right. Exactly.
I mean, I could get if he was selling like cleats or was just, walking out of the bookstore with, 10 sweaters or whatever. I can kind of understand that. But his own signature.
Yeah, AJ Green too. I mean, it's 4 games each. I just always felt like Georgia really got penalized for that, and it was pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think everybody would say with common sense that's just not fair and that's just not right. It just doesn't sound right. So, I'm thankful that they're making the right step, and hopefully they have the structure and the system in place to try to facilitate it and make sure it works for everyone.
Yeah, let's hope so. I guess looking forward to Georgia's schedule, any other games that you see maybe give Georgia potential matchup problems? I know, obviously, again, week in, week out, you can always lose any of them. But, outside of this next one, presuming we pass, what do you think is the next big test for us?
Yeah, no, November is tough. As you guys said, it's extremely hard to get up for a big game and then come back the next week or the week after and still play at that same level. But Kirby's going to have to make that happen because we got Missouri, we got Auburn, we got Texas A&M, and we got Tech. And those are all big games for different reasons. Obviously, the one that I think is naturally going to be the most challenging is Auburn. Gus always seems to find himself in a position at the end of the year, whether right or wrong. It feels like he's always coaching for his job, which is not a good thing. When you back a guy into the corner like that, he's gonna come out swinging and give you everything you got. And Auburn is talented, especially defensively. They are super, super talented. So and that game is played there. So that's going to be a super tough environment, a tough game. So if I had to point to one, I would say without a doubt it'd be that Auburn game.
Yeah, I completely agree. And speaking of that, I believe I was reading that Joey Gateway, the backup quarterback, is transferring because I know they haven't been happy with Bo Nix currently. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's a tough situation. It's I got a couple buddies that played at Auburn and they feel like he wasn't given an opportunity, and the job was pretty much given to Nix from day one. And then after some of the struggles and all that stuff, that he should have given more opportunity even into the season. And so they don't even feel wronged or that he's done Auburn wrong by leaving. They almost kind of expected it.
Yeah, I'll say I thought that in that 06 season, I thought Coach Rick and the staff were incredibly fair to not only Joe T, but also to Stafford and Joe Cox. It seems like they gave them all an opportunity to try to win that job over the course of the year.
Yeah, they did. Stafford didn't even start the first few games. It was Joe T did, and it allowed Matt to kind of get in there and not necessarily come in when he wasn't quite ready. He got some practices, some reps in games and all that stuff, and I think within several weeks into the season, it was evident that he was ready and he was the guy. And I think that was beneficial because you can stunt a quarterback's growth majorly by throwing them in the fire when they're not ready and kind of rattling their cages a little bit. That could do damage down the road.
Yeah, it seemed like his coming out party was that game at Auburn in 06. Could you tell that week in practice that he was going to light it up?
Yeah, it was a great one.
Yeah, no, that was 06 was a rebuild year for us. It was a year where we definitely had some lumps. But we talked about it a little earlier about the games that you get up for. And Auburn was one of those games, and the media's writing saying how we're going to be killed, and I know Tommy Tuberville came over to Coach Rick before the game and was kind of saying, hey man, hate that your season's going this way, pretty much saying that they were going to win the game without saying it. And hey,
really,
this is an SEC game. This is a rivalry game, and got a little bit of early momentum. I think Trey Battle had like 3 interceptions that game. And turned it on and just showed that, hey, we may have lacked experience that year, but we definitely had some talent.
No, for sure. How did Coach Rick take that when Tuberville said that?
Oh, he brought it into the locker room and
that's the way to do
it. Get your juices flowing a little bit more, for sure. And it was a thing that worked in our advantage. It worked in our advantage for sure.
He always seemed really cerebral with stuff like that.
Yeah, the one thing about Coach Rick is yes, he was extremely level-headed, but he would take different things. We used to have a board, and any headline, any media thing that any other coach said or player said in the news or whatever was posted on the board that week, and as you walk out to practice, you would see it just to kind of give you that little extra chip, that little extra motivation. Of what you're working for.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, looking back on your career you had with the Georgia-Florida series, I know you were 2-2. I guess I was looking back at old stats today. How frustrating was it losing DJ Shockley in 2005? And I know Joe T did the best he could, but it seems like that's one that everybody wanted. It seems like they could have got the win over Florida, and that was a frustrating loss having to go in there with the backup quarterback.
Yeah, it was frustrating. I definitely feel like we were the more talented team, and I kind of talked about you always want to go into games like that with both teams healthy. That way you don't have any regrets, or you can't look back and say anything. And like you said, Joe T, played his heart out and all that stuff, but the game plan changed. We got a lot more conservative. We took away that run throw option that DJ did, and it definitely changed the way that we played. And unfortunately, we weren't able to overcome his absence. But I think it would have been a different game if DJ was able to play.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question.
Yeah, looking back that you were able to throw, I think we mentioned it last time, you were able to play with David Greene, DJ Shockley, and Stafford, so that's a pretty good career having all 3 of them throw to you. Looks like all of them kind of threw in different ways. Any thoughts on like running routes? Did you have to adjust? Because it seems like David Greene was pretty accurate. DJ Shockley, he seems to have a strong arm. Then Stafford just looked like he had a laser. So how was that?
Yeah, no. All 3 mindsets are kind of different. David was a lefty, and believe it or not, the rotation on the ball comes out differently, and it's harder to catch because you're used to catching from righties all the time, so it's just different. So it took me a little while to kind of get in rhythm with him and the way the ball came out. So that was an adjustment. And then with DJ, with his ability to run, and although he was an excellent runner, he would scramble to pass, and then every once in a while he would run. So when you're downfield, you could never give up on a route, and you'd always have to be ready for it, no matter what. So we did a lot of different scrambling drills and had different rules how to break off our routes and all that stuff. So that was an adjustment with him. And then with Matt, he just had that NFL arm where he could throw any pass. Early on in his career, especially when I was playing with him, he hadn't really developed that touch, so you could be running a 5-yard out or a quick slant, and that ball was getting on you in a hurry. So just making sure to get your head around and really focus with your eyes to catch that ball was key with him. So they all brought different elements to their game, but as a receiver, it was different catching balls from all 3 of those guys.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I guess 2006. Could you tell he had a laser coming in? Because it looks like he was a little rough around the edges. But I remember Sean. Actually, we didn't know each other a couple of years later. But you read so much into him. Number 1 overall recruit coming out. But he was he a little kind of a project the first year, it seemed like?
It was just learning just the little ins and outs. The arm talent was there from day one. He could throw that ball a mile, but it was just learning. Hey, when do I need, especially with the backs that don't have as natural of hands? Hey, when do I just need to lob it in there, give him a touch pass, type thing like that. Just a little nuances that he definitely developed in second year in 07 and definitely was there in 08 before he left. But I think a lot of quarterbacks, deal with that, especially when you're so naturally gifted and you have that arm. Just focusing on just the small little details is important, which goes back to Coach Bobo. Coach Bobo did an excellent job, grooming him and getting him ready for sure.
Now, if you had, and I guess other than that three, it seems like we've been blessed with riches of late at quarterback. So I guess if you could get in a time machine and go back and play one SEC championship game with either of these gentlemen at quarterback, would it be Fromm or would it be Murray, and why?
Uh-oh.
Man, that's a tough question. I would say, man, that's splitting hairs right there. If I was put on the spot and had to pick, I would probably say Aaron Murray. I'm always was intrigued with him. He wasn't super fast, but he was elusive, and he would pick up big first downs with his feet. And then he was a gamer for sure. If I had to choose, I would say Aaron.
Sean, you've asked me that one before too. Good question.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's just something about it. And I love Aaron Murray. There's some intangible factor about Fromm where you're never really out of a game with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I have heard he's probably one of the most cerebral quarterbacks there is, just as far as knowing every little thing and every little detail of a defense, knowing what he wants to do with his offense based on just certain pitches and looks, and that he never gets the guys in a bad play call. So just those intangibles, I know from what I heard, he's the first guy in there, he's the last guy out. Just that type of stuff is incredible, especially reading when he was a freshman and he was coming in doing that. Not to mention he beat out Jacob Eason and Justin Fields, who probably both will be really high draft picks sooner than later.
Yeah, that's crazy. How much of, having played at the college level, how much control do the coordinators really have over play calling, offensive productivity versus like a quarterback or whatever? Like a lot of times when you hear, because some of the criticism has been lobbed at Fromm, right? And there's probably some of it that's merited. But, a lot of criticism you seem to hear is, well, why doesn't he audible more? And so just from somebody that's played the game at that level, is it really that easy?
Yeah, there's variables to it. So there's different offensive schemes and different coordinators allow their quarterbacks to have, more and more control. Especially when you come in as a freshman, you'll see a lot of times when they come up to the line and they audible. They're going to look to the sideline for that audible. Versus Jake is allowed to audible on himself, so he'll come up and he'll look. But even within those audibles, there's rules and guidelines. So if he has a certain play called, he can't just check to a deep pass. Versus this look, he has to check to either this or that. So there are times where a quarterback could miss a look and he was supposed to check here and he didn't. But there's also certain times when his hands are cuffed. He can't check to what he probably naturally wants to check. He has to check to what's called within the system, what the audible is for that play, what's dictated versus that coverage.
Okay.
So I would say within Coley's system that Jake has as much control as any quarterback would ever have. Now, how much control does Coley allow his quarterbacks to have is a different question.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
All right, I got a question for you, Sean. Here, I know you we've been debating it, so I figured Sean Bailey be a good one to ask. So what we've been talking about, just because we were real down, of course, after the South Carolina game, and then the first half of the Kentucky. For Kirby to make a change, maybe an offensive coordinator or even philosophy. Sean keeps saying that if Justin Fields came out and won the national title and maybe got some accolades, even Heisman Trophy, and you had that man on, you had the kid on campus, would that make a change for Georgia in the long run for the good?
I think so. I think for sure. I think if you look historically, if you look at Alabama, who's been dominant for so long, before them LSU, in the SEC, it's always been extremely strong defenses with ground control, game managers at quarterback, and big time running backs. But if you look at the last 3 years or so, look at Nick Saban, who's probably been one of the most resistant to that. Alabama's now running a spread type offense. They're throwing the ball all over the place. LSU is running a spread offense. They're throwing the ball all over the place. Right. So Kirby's success in the SEC has been more ground and pound strong defense, but the game is changing. So I think Kirby is going to acknowledge and see that, hey, we're going to have to change a little bit. We're going to have to get into a little bit more spread. These strong defenses aren't able to carry the torches as much as they were, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So I think that's where our next steps are going. And I'm not to say that, Coley was at Miami, he was at Florida State, and it might be in his arsenal to do. But I think we definitely need to look in the mirror sometime soon to see if we can change our type of offense. And we got the athletes to run it. It's just more of a philosophy and mindset of how things are going to be done.
Yeah, and it seems like even with these spread schemes, and it's probably always been the case to some extent that, when you look back at when Chip Kelly was at Oregon and then really even Auburn, I mean, those are all spread offenses. In Florida, when Meyer was down there, they're all spreads, but it's like predicated on running. So it seems like you should be able to do both. You could probably keep that ball control while it's still kind of spreading it out a bit.
Yeah. I mean, DeAndre Swift is a perfect example. As elusive as he is, having the extra tight end, having a fullback in there, he doesn't necessarily need that. When you spread the defense out, it doesn't allow them to put 8 guys in the box. You're spreading them out, and it gives guys like Swift, more open running lanes versus when we got 2 tights or 1 tight and we got that fullback in there and you only got 2 wideouts. Now you can put 8, 9 in the box and you can man up the wideouts. And if you don't have those game breakers or you don't have the experience right now, you can make the offense a little bit more one-dimensional. So, like I said, we have the talent. We have Cook back there. We have Swift back there. We have the guys that can be elusive and be productive in a spread running game, as well as the passing game to complement it.
Oh yeah, completely agree.
So,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, here's another one, right? Speaking of Swift. It's otherwise if you had to pick one question, and this one to me is harder. If you have him for one game, big game, Sony Michel or DeAndre Swift, and why?
That's another tough one.
It really is. Sometimes I have a hard time telling the difference between them because their games are so similar.
Yeah. Now, if I had them both as mature juniors at the same time, I would go with Swift.
Really?
It's not by a landslide, and again, it's picking hairs there, but I think Swift just gives you just a little bit more being elusive, being able to make something. Not that Sony didn't, but I think Swift just gives you just that little bit more. Like if I had to pick one, I would go with him.
Seems like he's just like a little twitch more explosive and maybe a twitch faster.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, Trey, what you got for the man?
Yeah, getting close to the time here. So, if you made your prediction, what's your score prediction for this weekend, Sean?
I think it's going to be 28-25, Georgia.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to go 28-24. Georgia doesn't cover, but they win. So
yeah,
I think
it's going to be a hard battle, a good fight. Going to be up and down, and I think we're going to be able to outlast them, and having Rodrigo as an extra weapon will be good as well.
No, great.
How about you, Sean?
Honestly, I guess your scores were so similar. I could see it maybe being like 20-14, something like that. From kind of leads them to a touchdown at the end to seal it.
Yeah,
We just kind of wear them out, you know.
Yeah, I can see Florida turning over the ball because they've had some turnovers, and if we can clean it up and stay plus 1 or 2 in the turnover battle, and then have more rushing yards, should win the game. All right. Well, Sean, is there any way we can follow? I know you say you're on Facebook. Are you still doing the wide receiver camp? Or are you still doing that, or?
Yeah.
Working with receivers.
Still doing some wide receiver individual stuff. Doing some team training. The company's called Breakout Training. You can follow us on Breakout Training on Facebook.
Okay.
We post every once in a while to keep everybody updated of what we got going on.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on again. And what are you doing for the game this weekend? We're actually Sean and I, with a couple of buddies, we're heading down Friday to Amelia Island, and we'll be going to the game. So we're excited.
Nice. So we'll have a little Halloween costume party for adults Saturday, and be watching the game at that party.
Awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, appreciate you joining us again, and that's another episode of Herschel Talkers, and we're out.
Yep, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.